Hello, everybody, and welcome to my classroom. This lesson is about implementing 21st century skills in the classroom. My name is Michael Holder. I'm starting with the mask on because this is really a 21st century view that when students come back to school, they're going to have. I'm not going to teach this entire thing with this on. It's a little bit ridiculous to me, but we need to have them to keep everybody safe in the classroom. But that's what they're going to be seeing every day they come to my class. So I want to get started. We're talking about implementing 21st century skills in the classroom. They're very important skills that students need to learn to be able to handle what's going on in America today as far as the job world, right? Classrooms have gone beyond the traditional teaching approach that's happened for the past, 100 years, and CTE in the past, 80 years, classrooms, or 100 years, classrooms have drifted into, we need to get them ready for the work world the minute they leave here. And whether they go to college or whether they don't, or whether they take a trade route, or whether they take a credential-based education or job is up to them. But if we can get them career ready when they leave here, they can take those skills and implement them in their next endeavor, whatever that happens to be. So we're going to have, let me make sure I can get this thing to click. Okay, we're going to have just a little activity, nothing major. So have some pen and paper available, and we're going to see how what you assume is what your students lack, how it compares to what the people who have done a little bit of research understands that the students miss or missing, and we'll see how we compare and see if we already know the answer to this question. We just need to find clarity on it. So I start this out with a presentation about what the problem is. And there was an article in Time Magazine talking about the skills that students are lacking, the skills that students do not have. And it says, this is a story about whether an entire generation of kids will fail to make the grade in the global economy because they cannot think their way through abstract problems, work in teams, distinguish good information from bad, or speak a language other than their own, right? Can students operate outside of the traditional learning environment? Can they have things such as accountability, responsibility, work with a group of people, and be able to function properly in the work world? We tend to send them out with all of this knowledge, all of this English and science and social studies and all these wonderful things that later on in life you find out that you really need and you enjoy having, I hope. But we don't understand that they need to be able to function. They need to be cross-functional. They need to be able to do more than one thing. They need to problem solve. They need to have critical skills. They need to be able to deal with people. They need to be able to make systems operate. They need to be able to manage systems, all kinds of things. And these things span all of the different traditional places they work, right? So what is our new challenge? We are currently, this came from Did You Know? We are currently preparing students for jobs and technologies that don't exist. It blows my mind thinking about this problem and process. We're going to create students that can critically think and solve problems that they don't know are going to happen, and they're going to work in jobs that they don't know exist. Right? This is a big thing for technology, especially technology, engineering, design. If you're teaching that class, we have to teach them how they impact the world and how what they do is going to provide a lasting impact later. But you don't know what that impact is yet, right? We have consequences, intended, unintended consequences. The unintended things are preparing for things that you don't have any clue are going to happen. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And this is kind of just a quick view of, this is what your classroom could look like. We have classrooms that could look any different number of ways. You could be doing construction, you could be doing mechanic work, you could be doing something in a science laboratory of some sort as far as healthcare. There's so many different things in CTE that we're preparing students for. We need to give them the basic skills, because what's going to happen as far as putting together something in mechanic class, right, isn't the same as what's going to happen in healthcare, but oh, it is. It's absolutely the same, because you're putting things together, you're making things work together in a system, how things integrate into a system, and can students really understand that process? And by the way, you're going to have to collaborate with other people. So it is very much the same, very much the same. So this is kind of my little personal definition of CTE, and then this is the Kamahama Schools Report definition of 21st century skills, right? CTE is to give exposure to different careers and to prepare students for the working world, right? To provide the necessary skills to thrive in a competitive market and to produce career-ready students in the 21st century. That's what I believe CTE is. And that really aligns with basically what CTE stands for. 21st century skills, content knowledge, literacies, and proficiencies that prepare students to meet the challenges and opportunities of today's world, right? We're trying to get students prepared to meet all of the different things that they're going to come in contact with. And that's a hard task. That's a very big time challenge to, and what a weight on our shoulder. But if we can give them the basic skills and we can allow students to be adaptable to the changing world, because this world is growing at an exponential rate technologically wise and in different careers, right? If we can make them adaptable to the different things, then, you know, they can bounce from different career to different career if that's what they need to do, right? I said these careers already share so many similar concepts. You may be able to go into this career and not enjoy it, or don't want to do it, or lose the job and move into another career, and you become more marketable. You can do other things. So it's very important. Or we get you ready for a career that you can absolutely crush and be very good at, right? So my thing is, sometimes you have to prepare for the worst just as much as you have to prepare for the best. And I would rather have students be able to handle a lot of different things in a range than be able to just focus on one thing. And when it doesn't go well, if it doesn't go well, they're stuck wondering why it didn't work in that one career, when they have a broad spectrum of skills that they can move into another industry or career. All right, so this is where you kind of need to start writing things down. It's up to you to kind of figure out what you think they're lacking. So, right, you got 3 different types of skills that they need to learn. You got the learning skills, and those are communication skills, talking to each other, questions, right, sharing information. Collaboration is working together. Boy, oh boy, students need to learn how to work together, and not anybody who's done a lab in a school has seen students work, and one person does it and the other 3 are playing and doing other stuff. Can they work together and use all of their different skills as a cohesive unit? Critical thinking, looking at problems, right? And then creativity. So if you want to write down things within those that you see that students are lacking, what can they not do, right? What is it that they can't do that we need to focus on? Because sometimes we need to understand what they can't do to understand what we need to teach, right? So what do they need to focus on within that? And when we get to the end, we'll see if some of these things match up to what you wrote down. Then you've got literacy skills. And forgive me if I ramble too much, and not ramble, but forgive me if I sometimes provide the answer while I'm speaking, because I get excited about some of this stuff, because these are skills that I find important. So literacy skills, information, right? Understanding facts, figures, and data, and how to deal with those things. Media, understanding the methods and outlets with which information is published, right? So do your students understand information that comes off the internet, and can they find the credible source, or can they understand what they can discern from good information and bad information? Technology, understanding machines that make the information age possible. We're in this wonderful age called the information age, where we get so much information. I like to call it the too much information age. Can they understand what they're doing and how it affects other people? And can they understand how to use the proper technology for the proper application? And then you've got the basic skills, right? So life and career skills. I wrote down before I did this what skills I thought that students lack, right? So see if some of your skills match some of these, write them down, and then we'll talk about how we can implement them in class. Flexibility and adaptability. Can students deal when something doesn't go their way, right? Or can they shift focus into something else and leave behind what's not working, right? Can they be flexible? Can they operate in many different functions? Initiative and self-direction, right? So initiative and self-direction, do they, sometimes we can't teach initiative and sometimes you can't teach direction. So those are skills that you have to just kind of come upon, right? You have to have that moment in life where it happens, but we can push them in a direction to understand what they're trying to do to give them that aha moment for self-direction and initiative. Social and cross-cultural skills, can they operate with people that don't think the way they think, right? Perspective is a humongous lesson that's taught in technology and engineering and design, because you need to be able to design a product from a different person's perspective, or you need to have somebody that designs it that has the perspective of the person you're marketing towards, right? Can you work with people of different ethnicities, races, genders, right? And be able to deal with getting somebody else's opinion that's different from yours, right? And on top of that, can you operate with a language barrier? Can you handle dealing with people that have different languages, or really just learning a new language so you can operate with people with different languages? Productivity and accountability. Can you be productive? And oh, by the way, when you're not, can you be accountable for why you're not productive? It's a very big skill. Meaning, can you be on time to class? Can you turn an assignment when I ask you to do it? I use this all the time in class. Assignments are due on this date. And it's a weird, I have you do something very simple, but you're not going to turn it in until next Tuesday. And then they look at me like, why can't I turn it in now? And I say, because I don't want it now. Even though you finished it 5 minutes ago, I want it next Tuesday. Can you handle a simple task and be accountable for something that I ask you to do and do it at this point in time? And then I see if they can do it, right? It's accountability. Can you handle the task that I've asked you to do? It's going to happen in the working world. Can you do it in this world? Right? And then leadership and responsibility, allowing students to take charge of something, have ownership, be responsible for something, right? So can you do that? So how do we implement them? So you've seen these, you should have written down some of the skills, I hope. And again, I hope you've written down some of the skills that you've seen that maybe don't necessarily match these, but also how we can implement them. So how can we implement 21st century skills into the classroom? So if you want, you can write that stuff down, pause this for 3 or 4 minutes and write down some of the skills that you're seeing them lacking, and see if the skills that you're seeing students lacking kind of match what we want them to learn. So pause this. I will do one of these while you pause so you can have this wonderful picture. Right, now you should be back after you've unpaused. Let's see how we implement some of the 21st century skills in the classroom, right? So we got to define the phases of the 21st century learning movement, right? We need to understand, we as teachers, we the people need to understand the skills and competencies that we need to instill. We need to understand what they don't have, right? I think I added an extra L in instill, sorry about that. We need to understand what they don't have, what they can't do, right? What can they not do? We need to condense those skills into manageable groups, because there's a ton of skills that are 21st century skills that we can't possibly teach all at once, but we can put them in manageable groups that we can give them tasks where they get 3 or 4 at a time. They don't need all 40 at once, right? They need to do some of the skills at some time so they can kind of get them together. And then we need to empower the students to actually do the skills. It's time to take the load off of us and put it on them. Give them the opportunity to lead. We have to get out of the way sometimes. So Ken Kay, CEO of Ed Leaders 21, said this: it's hard to measure, but leaders at the forefront of 21st century learning movement tell me that they still see too many students sitting passively while teachers develop or deliver instruction. Too much technology is still used to replace routine tasks rather than turbocharge the experience of learning. So we have all these wonderful things at our in our ability to teach, but then we rely on it too heavily, and we don't do anything that to get students to make the connections, right? We need to get students to make connections into the things that they're learning about. And when you make connections, all of a sudden learning becomes easier. We don't provide the answer. We allow them to take the process to get to the answer, right? Even though ultimately we provided them the answer, we're allowing their brains to make the connections and the synapses to fire and their thinking skills to operate, rather than just getting them give me an answer. I don't need an answer. I need to know why you got to that answer. All right. So here we go. Let's see if we can. So what can we do? Right. Some of the skills that they're missing, you've written down, hopefully, match some of these things. Right. So we can, as a teacher, we can make it a learner-centered classroom. So one of the skills that I wrote down was students don't have any accountability, right? And how do we give them accountability? We make them the people who are teaching us certain things. I think that this lesson is kind of a sneaky way of using 21st century learning skills. I don't know if it's sneaky. It's probably more blatant than sneaky. But I'm looking up information and I'm teaching it back to the teacher, which is kind of what a great idea, right? I'm having to get the information to give it back to teacher, which means I put more focus into seeing what I'm reading so I can get back to teacher, which means that I have to actually focus on the things that I'm doing to give it back. Right? Which means I'm going to inherently do more work because I don't want to necessarily look like I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So then students as producers, right? So students, instead of giving paperwork all the time, they need to produce products, right? Produce things, right? Produce an outcome, right? So students as producers, that allows students to complete things, get things complete, responsibility. Learn new technologies, right? So that's, for us, we need to learn how to, there's so many teachers, when this COVID thing happened, they found out how much they didn't know about technology and computers, right? I was one of them. We have to learn new technologies and be as current as they are. How can I teach technology to students that know more about technology than I do, right? Go global, I think, is an interesting concept, using other classrooms, maybe linking up with other classrooms across the world to get their perspectives and share what we're doing with them. I think that's very interesting, and it would probably get a lot of attention from students. Use smartphones is one of my favorites. I use smartphones in class. We use them all the time. I know it's like the anti thing in school was like, hey, don't use smartphones, but I use them. I let them use them. I find that they use them less if I let them use them more. I don't know if that makes sense, but letting them use the things that they enjoy and letting them use the things that they're going to use in the future, right? Because when you're in the business world, you're going to use your smartphone, allows them to understand how to properly use them. Blog, I've never blogged in my life, but I could see how doing a live blog would help students be able to interact and be to have communication. Go digital. Make students turn things in digitally, right? We've gotten so used to having paper turned in and its assignment turned in. I think digital assignments that allow for a collaboration between students, right? So this is another one that I used. Is I used to be, and I'm still getting out of giving them things that I want them to turn in and then I just grade them, whereas I want them now to use digital content, and then we give them different forms I want it in, so they learn a little bit about digital content and presentation, so they're getting multiple skills at once. Collaboration, students need to work together. They need to be able to work in a group setting, and they need to be able to do it without having somebody stare at them all the time. They need to be able to work with a group and be responsible in a group setting. Twitter chats, I don't use Twitter, but it's something maybe I need to start doing because every business in the world is now using social media for their interaction with the world. So it's something that students should be very aware of. And look, again, this is one other thing I wrote down, writing appropriate things at the appropriate time, having a digital footprint that isn't a negative digital footprint. That's number 12, but it really goes with this, is having a digital footprint that people look at and see as being a positive thing instead of a negative thing. Connect That's pretty common sense. We need to connect with our students at different levels. Project-based learning, make them do something, make them produce a product where they have to sort out all of the different things they did right, wrong. Positive digital footprint, we talked about. Coding, I don't code, that's beyond me, but that doesn't mean in certain classes that coding isn't a skill that students need to learn. Innovate, right? Can you make something from something else? Can you provide something else and make it better? Right? Can you turn something and problem solve and troubleshoot into something better? Right? Can you make what you're doing better? Can you take your learning process and innovate it or create something new to make your process better? Right? Which leads you into the last thing is continual improvement. It's keep learning. There's never an end to what we learn. We're going to continuously learn for the rest of our life. We have to make students understand that it never stops, right? It never stops. It's continual improvement. So one of the things I like to do in class is I like to give them multiple attempts to take their test so they can see the improvement. And as they get a better grade, their confidence builds and things like that. So if some of those match some of the ones that you wrote down, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the effort to do it. Hopefully some of those you saw that we all kind of have the same issues, right? The key is making the connection with other teachers. This has been a humongous thing. I feel like I'm on an island sometimes with the issues that I want them to learn or the issues that I have, and other teachers looking and going, well, I kind of have that same thing, or I see that they're not responsible for their work, and I see that they're not good at collaborating, and I see that they're not doing these things. Sometimes it helps to know that other teachers have the same problem so we can talk together when we have issues. So what does a 21st century classroom look like, right? So that's what some of the things that teachers need to do. What do we need to do to make our classroom 21st century? We need to integrate technology. We need to make sure that we integrate ourselves with students and technology. That's very big time. Collaborative environments, right? Make sure that what we're doing is a group effort. You're going to work in a team for the rest of your life. Make sure that you are a team player. Opportunities to be creative, right? Assignments and projects for them to be able to expand on something, right? Allow them to express themselves, show what they're good at, and then you can fine tune it for them. Inquiry-based approach, right? So we're asking questions. We're not asking one-word answers. We're asking questions so they can give us either another question back is what I like the most. Is I ask a question and they ask me a question back, which means they're digging deeper into it. Justification of answers, right? Make sure your students can justify what they're saying. Why is what you're saying correct, right? It's not just the answer. I always tell my students that we're not cave people, right? The answer bird or tree, that is not the good answer I'm looking for. I'm looking for why the answer is what you're saying. Right? Give me one-word answers is like a cave person. I want to hear inquisitive, and I want to hear creative answers. Writing for reflecting, especially on projects. What did you do, and how could you have done it better? Or what did the team do, and how could the team have done it better? Any group work should have students reflect on what they did. And who did this and who did this, and we're not talking about tattling on a person, but we didn't do this well, we didn't do this well, we didn't do this well. Here's what we did great, but we didn't focus on these three things. And then you know when you do it the next assignment that what to fix, right? So it's reflecting on what you're doing, which is what we should be doing in class also. Using a problem-solving methodology, right? The actual steps to solving a problem. Hands-on learning. Again, building things, learning through making connections by doing. Then teachers as facilitators. We are not the answer givers. We are the facilitator to making them understand the answer. A big one I do all the time, and it blows people's minds, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, and this is a teaching class, maybe somebody will tell me I'm wrong. When we do tests in my class, some of the questions are a little bit hard. Like they're just, you have to think, you have to process what each word or key term in the thing, in the question gives you the answer. So I'll have students, I love it, and we do it out loud. They can ask me out loud during a test, I don't understand this question, and we will out loud go over the process for why what they have to do to solve the question. I don't ever give them the answer, and they don't ever give anybody else the answer, but it allows other people to see the process, because sometimes people are afraid to raise their hand, right? I want them to see what the process is for figuring out the answer to a question. So I'm very big on that, and I like it being that way because it leads you to the next one, is transparency. I don't want students to ever think that my tests are to fool them or to make them get the wrong answer. I want them to understand that there are answers that they have to come up with, and it's the correct answer, but it's not, I'm trying to make you miss this question by fooling you, right? I want you to think. I always thought when I was in school that there were questions that were worded terribly just to make you miss them. And it's true, right? I see it today. I see it in some of the state assessments. I see questions where I go, I would never word a question like that, right? And somebody will tell me it's because it's making you think a certain way or whatever it is. No, it's made to make you miss the question. That's not a transparent assessment. A transparent assessment is a question that can lead you to the right answer, and then there isn't a right answer. That's just my personal opinion on that, but I believe that making sure students understand, it will take a lot of pressure off of them if they understand that we're not trying to make them miss questions. We're trying to get them to use a rational process to get the right answer. So ultimately, my assessment in 21st century teaching, I boiled it down to 3 things. We need students to start giving us the answers. Right? Instead of us giving them the answers all the time, they need to start giving us the answers, meaning present the information to me. You look it up, you do some research, and you present the information to me, what you see, and then we can correct and adjust accordingly. But if they look it up, then they have to take some time and put some effort into it, and then we can facilitate by correcting and adjusting what they saw or what they think, and giving them kind of the power to learn. We need students to shoulder their part of the learning load that goes with giving us answers. Students need to take their part in the learning load instead of it being us at the front of the room giving them everything that they need to provided. And then last is we need students to start operating as an employee, right? I firmly believe, I've said it from the day I touched school, is we treat students like children, and they're not children, because when they leave high school, they're going to be employees. If you don't go to college, that's the next possible step. You're going to be an employee. So we teach students like children and like somebody's son or somebody's daughter, which they are currently, but they're going to go work in a working world where all that stuff doesn't matter. What you produce, the amount of money you can provide for my company, or how good you are at what you do matters. And all the other stuff flies out the window when somebody has a bottom line they have to meet. So we need to start teaching students the skills that make them successful in that environment, right? We need to make sure that they have responsibility for what they do and who they are and how they behave and how they act. So when they go into the working world, they're successful from the minute they hit the market. It's very important. I think that it's time for students to understand how serious the world is. COVID has given us an explanation of how serious the world is. Students need to understand how serious the next step is. It's very serious. It's very important to set yourself up, because if you can start earning, this is a big one in my class, if you can start earning and putting money away earlier and have a job at 21 instead of 26, you're 5 years ahead in retirement and things like that. And those are important things that we should instill in our students, to set responsibilities and accountabilities up early. So thank you. Again, I ramble. I don't apologize for rambling, because I love conversation and I love students and I love showing students how things operate in the real world. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too, or you ladies enjoyed it too. thank you for listening. I really appreciate anybody who's watched it. I really appreciate y'all being on here. Thank you for everything y'all do. I appreciate y'all being teachers. Thank you for everything. Have a good day. Thanks again.